Have you ever known, like with absolute crystal clear certainty, exactly what you needed to do,
Oh, all the time?
right? I mean, maybe it's a tough conversation you've just been putting off for weeks, or a career change you know you have to make,
Yeah.
or even just stepping up and getting involved in your local community.
Yeah, you map the whole thing out in your head.
Exactly. You know the exact steps,
Mm-hmm.
and yet you just don't do it. You sit there, you wait, you invent this highly logical reason to, handle it tomorrow.
It's honestly the great paradox of human behavior. We possess this incredible capacity for rational planning, right? But we constantly find ourselves completely paralyzed in that gap between the knowing and the doing.
And that paralysis is exactly what we're going to dismantle in this deep dive. We've got a really fascinating, incredibly dense essay in front of us today. It's titled The Gap Between Knowing and Doing.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what I love about this source is the wildly diverse cast of characters it brings to the table. We are looking at a single, universal human problem through the eyes of ancient Stoic philosophers, modern tech entrepreneurs, mystics, and even Bruce Lee.
Which is great because it acts as a prism. By looking at how all these different eras and disciplines attempt to solve this one specific form of self-sabotage, we can actually uncover the underlying mechanics of why we delay.
Right, and the mission for us today is to just tear down those psychological excuses we use to justify that delay and figure out how to finally cross the bridge from intention to action. So grab a coffee, get comfortable. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so to dismantle the excuses, we first have to understand the sheer cost of the delay. The author anchors the entire essay with a quote from Bruce Lee, and it forces this radical shift in how we perceive our own existence.
Yeah, it's a quote that at first glance sounds like standard motivational advice.
Yeah.
Lee says, if you love life, then don't waste time, for time is what life is made of.
Right, but the text points out that if you really dig into the phrasing there, it's actually a terrifying reality check. Lee isn't framing time as a container.
Like a bucket you slowly fill up.
Exactly, not like a bucket you fill with experiences. He is asserting that time is the actual substance of life itself. It is the cellular makeup of your existence.
Oh, wow. So wasting time isn't just a matter of being unproductive.
No, not at all.
It's basically an act of self-destruction. You are literally burning the only material you are made of.
Which forces a very uncomfortable audit of our daily choices. The essay asks, what are you actually buying with the substance of your life? Are you spending it on purposeful action, or are you trading it for the illusion of impressiveness?
The illusion of impressiveness. I love that phrase. And the essay leans on Musonius Rufus, who was a first-century Stoic, to explain this. And the historical parallels here are just incredible.
Yeah, they really haven't changed.
Right. The text mentions Roman poets like Juvenal and Martial, who basically wrote the ancient equivalents of celebrity gossip columns. They documented people showing off their lavish koi ponds, massive villas, orgiastic parties.
It is the exact identical sociological drive behind modern social media flexing. We are wired to seek status within our tribe. The problem, as Rufus sharply pointed out, 2,000 years ago, is that extravagance and displays of wealth require absolutely zero character.
Right. I mean, anyone with a credit card can buy a symbol of status.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how the text redefines true impressiveness by looking at the mechanics of sacrifice. It offers two historical counterexamples. First, Marcus Aurelius.
The Emperor of Rome.
Right, so as emperor, he had access to the treasury of the known world. But when Rome faced massive war debts, he didn't exploit his power to tax the lower classes. He actually held a public auction and sold off the imperial palace's furnishings to pay down the debt.
It's hard to even process that level of humility. It would be like a modern world leader auctioning off the antique desks and chandeliers from their executive mansion just to balance the budget.
It's unheard of today. And the second example operates on the exact same mechanism, but in the modern era. José Mujica, the former president of Uruguay.
Oh, I remember reading about him.
Yeah, he chose to give 90% of his presidential salary to charity. And he drove a battered 25-year-old car while in office.
And the text highlights that these acts are genuinely impressive, specifically because of their friction. Subordinating your ego to a higher principle is incredibly uncomfortable. It costs you social standing, it costs you comfort, it costs you pride.
And we naturally avoid friction. The essay includes a brilliant African proverb to illustrate this sociological tendency. It says, "A roaring lion kills no game."
A roaring lion kills no game. That is so good.
Right, because roaring provides this immediate, intoxicating feeling of power and attention. It signals to the jungle that you are there, but roaring doesn't put food on the table.
Hunting puts food on the table.
Exactly.
But hunting means staying quiet. It means crawling through the dirt, risking failure, and doing the slow, unglamorous work.
We spend so much time online roaring, posting our opinions, curating our image,
Oh, constantly.
because we get that dopamine hit of feeling important without having to actually hunt.
We trade the substance of our lives for the echo of our own roar.
Huh.
Now, knowing this logically is one thing. The core question the essay then tackles is, why, when we understand that the roar is empty, do we still refuse to hunt?
Right. Why does our logic fail us so often?
Because our logic gets completely overridden by the first major psychological obstacle, which is passion. But the text requires us to strip away the modern definition of passion here. We aren't talking about enthusiasm or finding your dream job.
Yeah, in the ancient Stoic sense, passion was treated almost like a disease of the mind. It was defined as an emotion so intense that it mutates and completely seizes control of your rational faculties.
It is the hijacking of the prefrontal cortex, the logical planning part of your brain, by the amygdala, the primitive emotional center. That makes a lot of sense.
The text uses a pretty harrowing example from Euripides' play, Medea. She is contemplating this monstrous revenge against her husband, which actually involves killing her own children.
It's super dark.
Very dark. But the crucial moment isn't the act itself, it's her internal monologue right before it. She states explicitly that she knows the horror of what she is about to do, but her passion is master of her reason.
So she isn't blinded. She isn't operating under some delusion. She sees the cliff clearly, she analyzes the drop, and she intentionally steps off anyway because the emotional compulsion is just stronger than her own free will.
Exactly. To the ancient philosophers, this cognitive dissonance, knowing the good but doing the evil because of overwhelming emotion, is the ultimate tragedy of the human condition.
But let me challenge this Stoic framework for a second here. When you frame emotion as this terrifying hijacker, the natural conclusion seems to be that we should aim to feel nothing at all. Wait, so is the Stoic goal to become a completely emotionless robot?
No, it's a vital distinction to make, and the text clarifies that the antidote to passion is definitely not suppression. Suppression is just a pressure cooker waiting to explode.
Okay, good on.
The actual mechanism for regaining control is what they call the pause.
Like just injecting a buffer between the stimulus and the response.
Yes, and the psychology behind it is fascinating. The text shares a story about Athenodorus advising the emperor Augustus. He told the emperor that whenever he felt blinding rage, he should silently recite the entire alphabet before moving a single muscle.
Wow.
And the modern daily Stoic movement actually has a challenge coin with the motto, pausa et reflect, and pause and reflect.
Reciting the alphabet sounds almost too simple to work against blinding rage, though.
It seems like it, but it works because it forces a neurological shift. When you concentrate on a sequential task, like the alphabet, you are forcefully pulling blood flow and electrical activity away from the emotional amygdala and back into the logical prefrontal cortex.
That is wild.
The text also pairs this with Seneca's analogy of a mirror. Seneca argued that the moment you look into a mirror to change yourself, the change has already begun.
Because by looking in the mirror, you are objectifying the emotion. You stop being the anger, and you start observing the anger. You say, I am currently experiencing a spike in greed, or I am feeling my pride flare up.
Exactly.
Naming it strips away its power to puppet you.
You successfully put reason back in the driver's seat.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, though, because conquering your intense passions only solves half the problem. What happens when your reason is perfectly in control, you feel totally calm, you have no blinding rage, and you still refuse to take action?
Then you encounter the most insidious trap of all, rationalization.
Yes. The text calls this the scandal of great men who waited. And this is the section that really holds a mirror up to the reader because it examines some of the most influential figures in history who were absolute masters at generating highly logical excuses.
Yeah, the essay points to Cicero, the brilliant Roman statesman who literally watched the Republic crumble while waiting for someone else to curb the ambition of Julius Caesar.
Incredible.
It also highlights Seneca himself, hoping his volatile student, Emperor Nero, would just naturally mature out of his tyrannical behavior.
The example that hit me the hardest, though, was George Washington. The text notes that in 1776, Washington wrote a letter stating that no man alive wished more sincerely than he did to see a plan adopted for the abolition of slavery.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance there is just staggering.
Right. He was the commander of the Continental Army. He became the first president. If anyone on Earth had the agency to force that plan into existence, it was him.
And the essay pairs Washington with Marcus Aurelius, who wrote private meditations about his grand vision for a Roman state built on absolute equality and freedom of expression. He was the emperor. He held autocratic power over the known world, yet both men delayed.
They wrote about the ideal, but they left the actual execution for another day.
And the source is very careful to maintain a neutral, impartial stance here. I want to make that clear. It does not frame Washington or Aurelius as villains. It just used them to illustrate a universal human flaw.
Right, they were just human.
Exactly. These men were capable of articulating breathtakingly noble ideals, but they were equally capable of convincing themselves that the political climate wasn't quite stable enough yet, or that the economic risks were too high.
They had incredibly sophisticated, plausible reasons for why taking action today was slightly less optimal than taking action tomorrow.
And the psychological mechanism at play here is what the text brilliantly terms the unnamed future agent.
Oh, I do this all the time.
We all do. When we face a daunting task, our ego feels threatened by the potential for failure or exhaustion. So to protect the ego, our brain invents a fictional character, an unnamed future version of ourselves. We convince ourselves that this future agent will somehow possess more energy, more courage, and more free time than we do right now.
We outsource the heavy lifting to a ghost. We tell ourselves, next month, when work slows down, I'll be the person who finally starts that project. But the brutal reality check of the essay is that the unnamed future agent never arrives. Because tomorrow you wake up and you are still just you.
So let's assume you realize this. You stop waiting for the future agent. You successfully manage your emotions with the pause. You decide to take action right now. The text warns that you immediately risk falling into the next cognitive trap.
Mistaking mere noise for purposeful action.
Exactly. The illusion of momentum. To explain this, the essay uses a highly contemporary example, Elon Musk. And again, the source remains totally objective, using him strictly as an observable case study in focus versus friction.
Right, we're just looking at the mechanics of action here.
Right. It examines his capacity for extreme, targeted action. When Musk applies his focus to a singular engineering or logistical problem, the results are historically significant. Commercializing electric vehicles, revitalizing space exploration with reusable rockets. That is the hunting we talked about earlier.
But the text contrasts those achievements with his deep engagement in online culture wars and petty internet arguments. It classifies this secondary behavior as noise. It requires energy, it generates headlines, and it feels like activity, but it doesn't move the needle on his core missions.
And the essay roots the danger of this noise in the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, who observed that the more opinions you broadcast, the more unnecessary conflict you invite into your mind.
Makes sense?
It then introduces a concept from Leo Tolstoy that explains the mechanics of why noise is so damaging. Tolstoy argued that a thought expressed in words is not just wind, it is a limitless force.
It has a kinetic impact on the world.
Yes. And that force acts as either a blessing or a curse, depending on where you aim it. The force of engineering a solar grid is a blessing. The force of an impulsive, reactionary tweet is a curse on your own focus. The ultimate question is, are you applying your force to the signal, or are you wasting it on the noise?
And the reason we gravitate toward the noise is because it mimics the dopamine profile of real work. It makes me think of the trap of performative learning. The essay brings in Epictetus, who specifically warned his students against the enthusiastic hoarding of useless knowledge.
Which is funny. It seems contradictory for a philosopher to warn people against learning.
It does, until you look at how we consume information today. We have entire subcultures dedicated to reading 100 books a year or listening to educational deep dives at triple speed. But it's the intellectual equivalent of studying a topographical map of Mount Everest for 5 years, buying all the top-tier climbing gear, wearing it around your living room, and never actually stepping out your front door.
You feel a massive sense of accomplishment because you are surrounded by the tools of the trade.
Exactly. But your behavior hasn't changed. You haven't taken a single real step. The essay offers Mahatma Gandhi's approach as the cure to this performative trap. Gandhi maintained that he had no new profound truths to teach the world, that nonviolence and truth were as old as the hills. He treated knowledge not as a badge of honor to be collected, but as an experiment. He said the reading is the hypothesis, but the living of it on a vast scale is the actual experiment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at the final, and most deeply ingrained obstacle. Let us say you navigate all the traps. You cut out the noise, you stop waiting for the future, you step out your front door and begin the experiment. The moment you take real action, you are going to encounter severe psychological friction.
Yeah.
And our natural instinct is to interpret that friction as a sign of failure.
We hit a roadblock and immediately think, well, if this was the right decision, it wouldn't be this agonizing.
To correct this misconception, the text brings in a framework from author Stephen Pressfield, who actually draws on Gnostic and Kabbalistic traditions. He describes the human condition as a state of exile. The metaphor he uses is that we are all born as cracked vessels of divine light.
And what does that mean in practical terms, like for the listener today?
It means that existential incompleteness is the baseline of the human experience. We aren't supposed to feel perfectly content. The purpose of being alive is to actively engage in the grueling work of repairing the cracks in the vessel.
Pressfield maps this directly onto the classic hero's journey, which completely changes how we should view discomfort. He points out that Act 1 of any journey, the starting point, is like Eden. It is comfortable, it is familiar, and it is safe. But it's also sterile. Nothing new can ever grow there.
To grow, you must leave Eden and enter Act 2. And the specific adjective Pressfield uses to describe Act 2 is harrowing.
Harrowing. It is supposed to tear you down. The obstacles aren't there to stop you. They are the very mechanism of the repair work. The deep insight here is that the gap between knowing and doing is essentially the border wall between Act 1 and Act 2.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
When you finally cross it and take action, the sudden rush of pain and doubt doesn't mean you made a mistake. It is empirical proof that you have finally left the couch and entered the arena.
The tragedy occurs when we misinterpret the harrowing nature of Act 2. We feel the pain, we panic, and we retreat to the sterile safety of Act 1, convincing ourselves that we just need to read a few more books or wait for a better moment before trying again.
So what does this all mean? How do we synthesize thousands of years of philosophy, psychology, and history into a practical framework for tomorrow morning? The essay closes with a rapid-fire convergence of voices that serve as our marching orders.
Voltaire offers the metric for success. He says a person should be judged not by the final answers they provide, but by the quality of the questions they lived. Questions like, did I apply my force to things that matter?
And then Confucius provides the tempo. He reminds us that the speed of our progress is entirely irrelevant so long as we do not stop walking through the harrowing landscape of Act 2.
Mother Teresa cuts through the paralyzing grandiosity of trying to fix the entire globe, offering the ultimate localized action. She says, if you want to change the world, simply go home and love your family.
And Patricia Ryan Madsen, the author quoted at the end of the text, perfectly names the antidote to all our delays. A life of meaning isn't about achieving flawless readiness. It isn't waiting for the perfect alignment of circumstances. It is just purposeful action.
Right, taking the specific resources you have today in the exact physical and mental state you currently occupy and doing the one thing you know to be right.
Which loops us all the way back to the terrifying reality of Bruce Lee's quote. Time is the cellular substance of your life. Every second you spend delaying is a piece of yourself that burns away forever. So I want to leave you with a thought that builds on this, focusing on the hidden cost of our excuses.
It's an important thing to consider.
Think about the concept of compound interest. We usually apply it to finances, the idea that a small investment today grows exponentially over time. But compound interest applies to our choices too. Every day you delay taking the purposeful action you know you need to take, you aren't just hitting a pause button.
No, you're not.
You are actively accruing a psychological and practical debt. The longer you wait, the heavier the friction becomes, and the more interest your future self will have to pay just to get back to the starting line.
The debt just grows and grows.
Exactly. Eventually, the debt becomes too large, and time simply runs out. So look at your life right now. What is the one compounding debt you are accumulating because you keep waiting for an unnamed future agent to handle it? And what would happen if you stopped roaring, accepted the discomfort, and made the first harrowing payment today?